President Lee Jae-myung and U.S. President Donald Trump have discussed the outcome of Trump's recent summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping, including issues concerning the Korean Peninsula and the smooth implementation of the Seoul-Washington Joint Fact Sheet. Samsung Electronics and its largest labor union are struggling to bridge differences and last-ditch efforts to avert a walkout, with a final mediation talk set for Tuesday morning Korea time. The second round of high oil price relief payments has begun today, with up to 250,000 won set to be distributed to around 70% of the population, amid prolonged Middle East tensions and rising inflation. Samsung Electronics and its union met again on Monday for government broker talks, making a final push to head off a planned walkout later this week. For details, we connect live to our economics correspondent, Park Jun-han. Jun-han, it looks like both sides are still struggling to find any common ground.
Right, Tommy. So Samsung Electronics and its largest union wrapped up high-stakes talks this evening, but once again failed to narrow their differences. Monday's talks, mediated by the National Labor Relations Commission, were convened after previous discussions collapsed about a week ago. The talks lasted 8 hours and 20 minutes and will resume at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, Korea time. With only days left before the planned strike on Thursday, this round of talks is scheduled to last until 7 p.m. and is widely seen as the final opportunity for a compromise over issues including wages and bonuses.
So, Jun-han, the core issue is the different pay scales in the bonus system. Do remind us of what the union is exactly demanding and how has management responded so far?
Right. The union is demanding that Samsung formally guarantee a bonus pool equivalent to 15% of the company's operating profit under its overall performance incentive, or OPI system. They're also calling for the removal of the current cap that limits these bonuses to 50% of an employee's annual salary. Management, on the other hand, insists on maintaining the current calculation system, stating it cannot eliminate the bonus ceiling. Instead, the company suggested that industry-leading compensation could be provided through special incentives if Samsung secures the top spot in the market. The situation has become critical enough that Samsung Electronics chairman Lee Jae-yong stepped in on Saturday, issuing a public apology and making an urgent appeal for unity. Despite the union's warnings that a walkout could last for up to 18 days starting Thursday, the planned full-scale strike faced a significant setback on Monday. A local court largely accepted Samsung's request for an injunction, ruling that essential staffing levels at key production facilities must be maintained at normal levels during any industrial action.
With a potential strike threatening a key sector of the economy, Jun-han, what kind of responses are we seeing from the members of the South Korean government?
The government has dropped strong hints about a potential emergency mediation. With the strike deadline fast approaching, President Lee Jae-myung shared a message on social media, emphasizing that labor rights must be respected as much as business management rights. He stressed that such a balance is essential under Korea's liberal democratic order and capitalist market economy. Prime Minister Kim Min-seok also stated on Sunday that the government would consider all available measures to protect the national economy. Under current labor laws, the labor minister holds the authority to suspend a strike for up to 30 days if the walkout poses a serious threat to the economy. That is all I have for now. Back to you, Dami.
All right, Jun-han, thank you for the coverage. Now, in other news, over the weekend, President Lee Jae-myung spoke over the phone with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump, and the two leaders shared their views on the recent U.S. China summit. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min tells us more.
In a call made after the U.S. China summit, President Lee Jae-myung was briefed by U.S. President Donald Trump on the results of that high-stakes meeting. Their talks over the phone on Sunday night, Korea time, took about half an hour. In a Blue House readout, President Lee congratulated his U.S. counterpart for successfully concluding his first state visit to Beijing in about 9 years. He noted the importance of managing the U.S.-China relationship in a stable manner for peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific and around the world. Trump shared the results of his recent summit with China's Xi Jinping, ranging from Washington-Beijing relations, agreements on the trade front, as well as the situation on the Korean Peninsula and in the Middle East. Yi took note of their dialogue related to the Korean Peninsula, and Trump promised his role and contribution for regional peace and stability in close coordination with his South Korean counterpart. Shortly after the talks, the South Korean president wrote on his social media that they share the understanding that close communication and coordination between Seoul and Washington is more important than ever amid a rapidly changing global order. The two leaders also agreed to faithfully carry out the Allies' joint fact sheet announced last year, once again calling the agreement historic. The fact sheet stipulates Korea's commitment to U.S. investments for lower tariffs and close cooperation on South Korea building a nuclear-powered submarine. On the Middle East, President Yi assessed President Trump's leadership in resolving the issue and wished that peace and stability would be swiftly restored in the region. It was the first top-level interaction between Seoul and Washington since the leaders' meeting in Gwangju about 7 months ago. Yoon-min, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi arrives in South Korea on Tuesday for a two-day visit that will feature summit talks with President Lee Jae-myung in his hometown of Andong. Our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun reports on what's expected from the meeting.
It will be the third time the two leaders have sat down together, and the agenda is wide-ranging. The meeting is the latest in a series of reciprocal visits the two sides have been building since they first met on the sidelines of last October's APEC summit in Gwangju, where they agreed to pursue regular high-level diplomacy. According to presidential chief spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung, the two leaders are expected to discuss practical cooperation across the economy, social issues, and the protection of their citizens abroad, with regional security and the situation in the Middle East also on the table. Analysts say the summit is less about any single headline agenda and more about sustaining the momentum the two sides have already built.
Rather than being driven by one specific agenda, I think this meeting is about continuing to stabilize the relationship. And within that, issues like energy security and supply chain resilience could come up as areas where the two countries find it relatively easy to cooperate.
The two leaders last met in January when President Lee visited Nara, Prime Minister Takaichi's home prefecture, for their second bilateral summit. President Lee said the two sides agreed to deepen cooperation on economic security, science and technology, and international norms, and to continue working-level talks on artificial intelligence and intellectual property. Perhaps most notably, the two leaders addressed a long-standing historical issue, agreeing to pursue DNA identification of the remains of forcibly mobilized Koreans and Japanese who died in the 1942 Jose coal mine flooding in Japan, which President Lee called a small but meaningful step forward. But beyond the agenda, much of the attention surrounding Tuesday's summit is on where it is being held. Andong is President Lee's hometown, and as this marks the first time the leaders of the two countries have exchanged visits to each other's hometowns, the Blue House described it as a meaningful opportunity to deepen the bond of trust between them. For Andong, long regarded as the spiritual heartland of Korean traditional culture, the summit also carries local significance, with residents drawing comparisons to Queen Elizabeth II's visit in 1999, which brought a lasting boost in tourism. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Today marked the 46th anniversary of the May 18 democratization movement, with President Lee Jae-myung in Gwangju City pledging full efforts to ensure proper compensation for victims and preserve the spirit of the movement. Jo Young-eun has this report.
President Lee Jae-myung on Monday attended the 46th commemoration ceremony of the May 18 pro-democratization movement in Gwangju and delivered an address.
민주주의를 위해 기꺼이 자신을 내던졌던 5월 민주 영령들의 고귀한 넋 앞에 머리 숙여 무한한 존경과 깊은 애도의 마음을 표합니다.
The ceremony took place at the former Jeollanam-do Provincial Government Building, which served as a final stronghold of civic resistance during the movement, following its restoration. Earlier, President Lee and First Lady Kim Hae-kyung also visited the May 18 National Cemetery to pay tribute to the victims of the movement and their bereaved families. The spirit of May 18 was also highlighted when making reference to the events of December 3, 2024.
12월 3일 내라는 아직 끝나지 않은 5월의 질문이었습니다. 저절로 오는 민주주의도 저절로 지켜지는 민주주의도 없습니다.
The government also pledged to continue efforts to document and honor the May 18 democratization movement so that the Gwangju of 1980 can continue to safeguard the nation's future. Also stressed in Lee's speech was the need for bipartisan support to ensure that the spirit of May 18 is reflected in the preamble of the nation's constitution.
정치적 이해관계를 초월한 모든 정치권의 지속적인 국민과의 약속이었던 것만큼 여야의 초당적 협력과 결단을 간곡하게 요청드립니다.
President Lee also pledged to rebuild the former Jeollanam-do Provincial Government Building into a living K-democracy shrine. He further announced plans to establish a government-led system to register and honor those who contributed to the May 18 democratization movement. Amid multiple crises facing South Korea today, from slowing growth and deepening inequality to shifts in the global order and regional depopulation, the South Korean leader voiced hope for his country to move forward, following the values embodied by Gwangju. Later, President Lee also visited the site of the December 29 Jeju air passenger plane disaster at Wuhan International Airport, where he met with families of the victims and instructed the authorities to conduct a thorough investigation. 조영은, Arirang News.
South Korea today released its annual document setting out its policy toward North Korea, highlighting the Lee Jae-myung administration's efforts to seek peaceful coexistence. Our Oh Soo-young fills us in.
Peaceful relations first, before denuclearization or unification on the Korean peninsula. That's the message running through Seoul's new unification white paper, the first under the Lee Jae-myung administration. Released on Monday, the annual document lays out Seoul's policy for peaceful coexistence with North Korea. It appears to respond to Pyongyang's hostile two-states policy, stressing the need to move towards a, quote, peaceful two-state relations geared towards unification.
Since Yi took office, Seoul has suspended and dismantled loudspeaker broadcasts and halted anti-North radio transmissions and leaflet campaigns. Since then, the North stopped sending trash-filled balloons. At least, compared with before, inter-Korean tensions have eased.
The document cites how President Lee last August pledged to respect the North Korean regime, to not pursue unification that subjugates the North, and to not commit any hostile acts. Alongside exchanges and normalization of relations with the North, denuclearization is still a goal under the END initiative. However, the white paper admits the nuclear issue cannot be resolved quickly.
The previous Yoon government clearly defined the North as an enemy, and its audacious initiative demanded denuclearization first. The Yi administration too seeks denuclearization, but not as a precondition for dialogue. It first aims to lower tensions and seeks dialogue, peaceful coexistence, and shared development.
Without an elaborate focus on unification, the white paper sets out ways to institutionalize peaceful ties, calling to restore inter-Korean contact channels, resume dialogue, and reduce military tensions. It also proposes a new inter-Korean basic agreement as a more durable framework. But experts say a more elaborate approach is needed to engage Pyongyang, which is still refusing contact with Seoul.
With its nuclear arsenal expanding rapidly, denuclearization looks increasingly unrealistic. The priority should be a nuclear freeze, followed by sanctions relief and steps to normalize the North's ties with the U.S. and Japan. Pyongyang must sense real benefits from cooperation with Seoul if it's to return to talks.
The ministry revealed earlier this month that North Korea revised its constitution to reflect its policy of distinguishing South Korea as a separate hostile state, removing symbolic references to unification. However, Seoul officials have noted that the North hasn't significantly sharpened rhetoric against the South. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And for the first time in 8 years, a North Korean women's football team has arrived in South Korea for a regional tournament and is set to face a South Korean club on Wednesday. Our Park Kwon-woo reports.
Greeted by the sound of camera shutters at Incheon International Airport on Sunday, North Korean football club Daeguang FC arrived in South Korea on a flight from Beijing ahead of its AFC Women's Champions League semifinal clash against Suwon FC Women on Wednesday at Suwon Sports Complex. 39 North Koreans, including 27 players and sporting director Hyun-jun, walked through a crowd of about 100 reporters and security personnel. South Korea's unification ministry approved the delegation's week-long visit through May 24th, the day after the competition's final match, which is also taking place at Suwon Sports Complex. And it promised support for a successful event.
We'll cooperate with related organizations, including the AFC and the Korea Football Association, to ensure the competition is carried out safely and smoothly, in line with the spirit of an international sporting event.
The visit marks the first time that a North Korean sports team has traveled to the South for an international competition since the 2018 International Table Tennis Federation World Tour Grand Finals. On Sunday, civic and religious groups supporting inter-Korean exchange also gathered at the airport to welcome the team.
With the North Korea defectors in our church community, we came here together, hoping to meet the North Korean people. We hope sports exchanges like this can help ease tensions and open a path toward reconciliation between the two Koreas. We also plan to attend Wednesday's match as well.
Despite the warm reception, the North Koreans moved quickly through the terminal without interacting with anyone at the airport, nor did they respond to questions from reporters. After loading their luggage into the team bus, the delegation immediately departed for its hotel in Suwon. Founded in 2012 and based in Pyongyang, Daeguang FC is backed by the North Korean consumer goods company Daeguang and is considered one of the North's top women's football teams, having won multiple domestic league titles. Daeguang FC from North Korea, now in the South, will now focus on preparing for Wednesday's semifinal against Suwon FC Women of South Korea. All eyes are on which team will advance to the final this Saturday. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
In other news, applications for the second round of financial assistance aimed at easing the burden of soaring fuel prices opened on Monday. Our Cha Young-kyung has the details.
The South Korean government will begin accepting the second round of applications for its fuel price relief fund starting Monday. According to the Ministry of the Interior and Safety, applications opened at 9 a.m. and will continue through July 3rd. During the first week, a rotation system will be applied based on the last digit of the applicant's birth year. Those who didn't apply during the first round will also be able to submit applications during this period. The support program targets around 36 million people in the bottom 70% income bracket. Eligibility is based on household health insurance premium payments assessed in March of this year. For example, a single-person household with workplace insurance can qualify if the monthly premiums are 130,000 won, or about $95 or less. That is equivalent to an annual income of roughly 43 million won, or around $31,000. However, so-called high net worth individuals with taxable property assets exceeding 1.2 billion won, about $870,000 or annual financial income from interest or dividends surpassing 20 million won, or roughly $14,500 are excluded. Special rules were also introduced to ensure dual-income households are not unfairly left out.
For a single homeowner, the assessed property value is around 2.6 billion won. Financially assuming a 2% dividend yield, a 1 billion won investment is required.
The amount of support varies by region. Residents in the Seoul metropolitan area will receive 100,000 won, or about $73, while people who live outside the capital region will receive 150,000 won, or around $109. People in designated population decline areas and special support regions will receive up to 250,000 won, or roughly $182. Funds can be received via credit or debit cards, local gift certificates, or prepaid cards. The money must be used by August 31st at small businesses and affiliated stores within the applicant's local government area. Unused balances will expire after the deadline. 차윤경, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. For that, we have our sports editor Paul Nate joining us in the studio. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Paul, let's start with football. Korea's World Cup squad was announced over the weekend. What can you tell us?
Right, the 26-man squad was announced on Saturday. It is made up of 3 goalkeepers, 10 defenders, 10 midfielders, and 3 forwards. One of those forwards being captain Son Heung-min, who is heading to his 4th and likely last World Cup. Hyun-jun of Besiktas is also included. He was the backup player in the 2022 World Cup in case Son was unable to recover from a facial injury. Jens Kastrup becomes the first player of mixed heritage born outside of South Korea to be included. And there's a surprise inclusion for Gangwon FC defender Lee Gi-hyuk. He has just 1 cap to his name, but is a versatile left-footed defender who can play in multiple positions, hence the call-up. There are only 6 K-League players involved, which is the joint lowest with the 2014 squad, which was also led by Hom Young-bo.
Now, Yang Hyun-jun was also included in the squad, and it turned out to be a weekend of celebrations for him, didn't it?
It did, yes, because his team Celtic won the Scottish Premiership. Yang started the title decider at home to Hearts on Saturday. Hearts were top heading into the match, and Celtic needed to win to secure the title, while a draw would have been enough for Hearts. The match ended 3-1 with late goals from Celtic, Daisen Maeda in the 86th minute, then Callum Osmond in the 97th. It's Yang's 3rd title with Celtic. He made 31 appearances in the league, scoring 8 and assisting 2. Elsewhere in the Korea World Cup squad, Hwang Hee-chan got his 4th assist of the season as Wolves drew 1-1 at home to Fulham in the Premier League, and Son Heung-min got his MLS-leading 9th assist of the season, but his team LAFC lost 3-2 to Nashville. LAFC still have 1 more match to play before the World Cup, May 24th at home to Seattle Sounders.
So Sonny could find his scoring form before the World Cup. And Paul, moving on to baseball, Kim Hae-sung recorded yet another multi-hits game over the weekend. Tell us more about that.
Right, it was his 8th of the current season, and it came on Sunday, local time, in the 10-1 win for the Los Angeles Dodgers against the Los Angeles Angels. Kim started at second base and batted 9th, going 2 for 3 with 2 runs scored, 1 RBI, 1 walk and 1 strikeout. It was his 2nd game with 3 times on base this season. His season batting average rose to .274, 26 hits in 95 at-bats. Meanwhile, Lee Jong-hoo of the San Francisco Giants extended his hitting streak to 4 games. He entered as a sub in the top of the 7th inning away to the Athletics, with the Giants leading at the time 2-1. He finished 1 for 2 with 1 run scored and 1 RBI. The Giants ran out 10-1 winners.
Now, Paul, before I let you go, finally to golf, ever so close for Yoo Hae-ran.
She fell just short, yes, of her 4th Korea LPGA win over the weekend. She finished as runner-up at the Kroger Queen City Championship in Cincinnati, Ohio on Sunday local time with a 4-round total of 10 under 270. She finished just 2 strokes behind the winner, Lottie Wood of England. He began the final round 4 strokes back, but shot 3 under 67 on the Sunday. This was helped by a very strong front 9 with 5 birdies, but then hit a bogey on the 10th, then a double bogey on the 14th. Yu now has more top 10 finishes in the same number of events this year than she managed in all 23 last year.
Alrighty, Paul. Thanks for that. I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Yep.
Skies will turn cloudy tomorrow, helping daytime temperatures drop below the 30-degree mark in most regions, with Seoul reaching around 27 degrees Celsius. Then on Wednesday, rain will spread across the country, bringing temperatures back to the seasonal averages. However, parts of the Gyeongsang-do provinces will remain hot tomorrow, with daytime highs climbing above 30 degrees Celsius. In the southern parts of Gyeongsang-bukdo province, the heat index is expected to hover around 31 degrees. So make sure to stay hydrated and limit outdoor activities as much as possible during the hottest part of the day. Many areas will also see very high UV levels nationwide during the daytime hours tomorrow. Also, ozone concentrations are expected to rise as well, so please take care. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 18 degrees, Chuncheon at 15 degrees, Busan at 18 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 27 degrees, Daejeon at 29 degrees, Daegu at 33 degrees. Looking ahead, rain beginning Wednesday afternoon is expected to gradually taper off by Thursday afternoon. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.